What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actresses finds herself face to face with a talk show host who refuses to let controversy go? What you're about to hear is the dramatic moment when Joy Behar allegedly crossed a line, sparking an on-air confrontation that left producers scrambling and viewers watching in complete disbelief. It began as a routine interview but quickly unraveled into one of the most talked about exchanges on daytime television. This is the story of how a simple conversation took an unexpected turn and why Jodie Foster's response became the moment everyone remembered. Before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below with your thoughts. By the end of this story, you'll definitely have an opinion, and I'd love to hear what you think. From the moment Jodie Foster took her seat across from Joy Behar, there was an unusual tension in the studio. The cameras were rolling, the audience was eager, and what was supposed to be a standard promotional appearance soon felt anything but ordinary. Foster had arrived to discuss her newest directing project, an emotional film centered on family struggles, healing, and redemption. But Joy appeared determined to steer the conversation somewhere else. So, Joy began with her trademark smile, one that seemed more calculated than warm. Your new movie explores some incredibly heavy topics: family conflict, abuse, generational pain. It makes people wonder, are you drawing from your own life? Foster shifted slightly in her chair, maintaining the calm professionalism she has long been known for, although the question clearly caught her by surprise. Well, Joy, she replied evenly, every artist draws from personal experience in one way or another. This story connected with me because so many families struggle with communication, misunderstanding, and healing across generations. Joy nodded briefly before leaning in again. Sure, but I'm talking about your family specifically. Her tone became noticeably sharper. You've spoken before about your complicated relationship with your mother. Then there was everything surrounding John Hinckley and the pressure of growing up in Hollywood. That must have left some emotional scars, didn't it? The audience grew noticeably quieter. Even the other panelists exchanged uncertain glances as the discussion drifted into deeply personal territory that few expected. Foster's expression remained composed, though her jaw tightened ever so slightly. Joy, she answered carefully, I appreciate your interest, but today I'm here to talk about the film and the themes it explores. These characters are fictional, and while every creative work contains pieces of its creator, I'd rather focus on what audiences can learn from the story itself. Joy waved off the response. Oh, come on, she interrupted. You can't separate the art from your own experiences when the parallels seem so obvious. She continued pressing the subject, insisting that Foster's childhood in Hollywood and the extraordinary events surrounding her early fame inevitably shaped the film's emotional core. The atmosphere inside the studio grew increasingly uncomfortable. Cameras continued rolling, but even the production crew appeared uncertain as the interview drifted further from promotion and closer to confrontation. Foster answered without raising her voice. Joy, I think there's an important difference between conducting an interview and conducting an interrogation. My mother was a single parent raising 4 children. She worked incredibly hard to provide opportunities for our family, and she supported me throughout my career. Joy responded with a skeptical laugh. Is that really how you see it? Because a lot of people would say you were thrown into one of Hollywood's toughest environments at a very young age. Now you've made a film about family trauma. It's difficult not to notice the connection. The other co-hosts shifted uneasily in their seats. One of them started to redirect the discussion. Maybe we should. But Joy quickly cut in. No, let me finish. Turning back toward Foster, she continued. Our viewers deserve honest answers. You've built a reputation as someone who's incredibly private and dignified, but maybe you've never fully confronted what happened in your own life. Isn't that exactly what your work is really about? For the first time, Foster slowly stood from her chair, calmly removing her microphone. The studio fell completely silent, the kind of silence where every movement suddenly feels amplified. When she finally spoke, her voice remained soft, yet every word carried across the room. Joy, I've spent more than 50 years working in this industry. I've been interviewed by journalists, filmmakers, and broadcasters who understand the difference between thoughtful curiosity and unnecessary cruelty. She paused briefly before continuing. What we're doing right now isn't meaningful conversation. It isn't respectful discussion. And it certainly isn't the kind of professionalism audiences deserve. Joy's expression immediately hardened. So now I'm the unprofessional one, she fired back, her voice rising. I'm simply asking the questions everyone else avoids. That's what real journalism is supposed to be, Jody. Maybe after decades of people protecting you, you've forgotten what a truly challenging interview feels like. Foster slowly turned toward the camera, her calm, Oscar-winning presence never wavering despite the growing tension in the studio. Looking directly into the lens, she spoke with quiet conviction. To everyone watching who has endured hardship, who has taken painful experiences and transformed them into something meaningful, never let anyone turn your story into someone else's entertainment. Your life belongs to you, and no one else has the right to define it. She then faced Joy once more. And as for you, Joy, I genuinely hope that one day you discover the difference between asking difficult questions and choosing to be deliberately cruel. There's a reason people have trusted me with their stories throughout my career. And perhaps there's a reason more people are beginning to wonder whether they can trust you with theirs. The cameras captured every second. Joy's expression shifted from disbelief to irritation, then briefly to what some thought looked like regret before the anger returned. Around the table, the other hosts remained silent, uncertain whether stepping in would calm the situation or make it even worse. Back in the control room, producers debated cutting to commercial, but no one could look away from what was unfolding live on air. Joy finally broke the silence. Years of television experience helped her recover quickly, even if her determination to push harder only intensified. So now we're talking about trust, she replied with unmistakable sarcasm, leaning comfortably into her chair. Please. You've spent decades mastering polished interviews and perfectly rehearsed answers. I'm trying to have a genuine conversation, but you're acting as if the set is some royal palace where everyone should only ask questions you've already approved. Foster remained standing, one hand resting lightly on the back of her chair. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed. What had started as a standard celebrity interview now resembled a courtroom drama, with Foster appearing calm and composed while Joy pressed forward with relentless intensity. Joy, Foster answered, her voice carrying a quiet warning, you're mistaking honest conversation for public humiliation. Those are two very different things. There's a world of difference between asking thoughtful questions about someone's work and trying to turn their entire life into entertainment. Entertainment. Joy shot back, her voice rising noticeably. This is television, Jody. Entertaining people is exactly what we're here to do. Unless, of course, you think you've become too important to participate. Maybe you're simply above the audience who watches this show and buys tickets to your movies. At the far end of the table, Whoopi finally attempted to step in. Maybe we should. No, Whoopi, Joy interrupted immediately, raising her hand to stop her. I think people deserve to see what happens when someone comes on this show acting like they're somehow better than everyone else, as if their pain deserves special treatment while everyone else's is fair game. The cameras slowly zoomed in on Foster's face. She didn't raise her voice or dramatically change her expression, but something behind her eyes shifted. It was clear she had reached a decision. You want to talk about pain, Joy? She asked quietly. Her voice remained steady, but every word carried unmistakable weight. Real pain isn't something you exploit for ratings. It isn't a headline or a clever talking point. It's something people carry privately. It teaches compassion. It reminds us to be careful with other people's lives because we never truly know what they've lived through. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, Spare me the speech. You're sitting there pretending to be the wise survivor, but let's be honest. You're still an actress promoting a movie, and that movie clearly draws from your own past. Don't criticize me simply because I pointed out the obvious. Sarah Haynes shifted uneasily, clearly hoping to steer the interview back towards safer territory. Maybe we could talk more about the filmmaking process. Sarah, please, Joy interrupted with visible frustration. The adults are having a conversation. Jody came here to promote a film that's obviously personal, and now she wants to act like asking about it somehow crosses a line. That's not how interviews work. Without saying another word, Foster stepped closer to the table. Her quiet confidence seemed to fill the entire studio. You're right about one thing, Joy, she said. This isn't how interviews are supposed to work. Professionalism. Respect. Basic human decency. None of those seem to fit the approach you've chosen today. She paused for a moment before adding. So perhaps it's time to try a different kind of conversation. The entire studio fell silent. Even crew members moving quietly behind the cameras stopped where they stood, sensing that whatever came next would be impossible to forget. The entire studio seemed to freeze. I've been appearing on television since I was 13 years old, Foster continued, her voice growing firmer with every sentence. Over the years I've answered thousands of questions about my career, my personal life, and the decisions I've made. I've dealt with relentless paparazzi, endless tabloid speculation, and strangers who believed they were entitled to every private detail of my life. She paused for just a moment before adding. But in more than 50 years of living in the public eye, I have never encountered someone who appeared to take genuine satisfaction in trying to humiliate another person on live television. For the first time, Joy opened her mouth without an immediate comeback. You keep saying you want an honest conversation, Foster continued. But real conversations require respect. They require listening. They require seeing the person across from you as a human being, not simply another segment designed to boost ratings. She shook her head slightly. What you're doing isn't journalism, Joy. It isn't even conversation. It's a performance. And the performance depends on cruelty. Joy finally recovered. So now I'm cruel because I refuse to ask easy questions, she snapped. Because I don't treat celebrities like they're untouchable? Sorry if reality makes you uncomfortable, Jody, but people have opinions about your life whether you approve of them or not. Foster answered without hesitation. There's a significant difference between having opinions and using someone's personal history as entertainment. The fact that you can't recognize that difference explains a great deal about where this program has ended up. The remark landed with unmistakable force. Joy's expression hardened, and whatever restraint remained seemed to disappear. What this program has become, she repeated, nearly shouting. This show has been successful for more than 25 years. We've interviewed presidents, Nobel Prize winners, world leaders, and countless Hollywood stars. And now an actress who hasn't headlined a blockbuster in years wants to lecture me about television. A heavy silence filled the studio. Everyone knew the comment had crossed another line. Attempting to dismiss Foster's career ignored decades of acclaimed performances, multiple awards, and a respected directing career that continued to earn praise from critics and audiences alike. For the first time since the interview began, Foster smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. You know something, Joy, she said calmly. You're right. I haven't spent the last decade chasing blockbuster headlines. I've been directing films I genuinely believe in, collaborating with talented artists, and building work that reflects the values I care about. She held Joy's gaze. And you're also right that I'm not accustomed to conversations like this. In the professional circles I work in, people arrive prepared. They treat one another with respect. They understand that the purpose of the interview is to inform the audience, not to satisfy personal ego. My ego? Joy repeated, standing abruptly from her chair. She stepped around the table until she was standing only a few feet away. You're the one who walked onto my set acting like you're too important to answer straightforward questions about your own movie. I answered every question you asked, Foster replied. I discussed the film's themes, the importance of healing, the realities of family relationships, and why those stories matter. She paused. But that wasn't enough for you. Her voice remained calm. You weren't looking for insight. You wanted a breakdown. You wanted tears. You wanted me to confirm a story you'd already written in your own mind. Now both women stood facing each other in the center of the studio as every camera captured the unfolding confrontation. The remaining hosts watched in stunned silence, unsure whether stepping in would help or only make an already volatile situation even worse. You know what I wanted? Joy replied, her voice now carrying a hint of frustration that bordered on desperation. I wanted honesty. I wanted someone in Hollywood to admit that the industry survives by turning damaged people into products and selling their pain to audiences. I wanted you to stop pretending you're somehow above that system. Foster answered immediately. Her words would become the defining moment of the confrontation. The difference between us, Joy, she said with quiet certainty, is that I've never claimed to be above anyone or anything. I've acknowledged the difficult chapters of my life. I've learned from them. I've tried to transform those experiences into work that might help someone else feel understood. She took one final step forward. But you're taking other people's struggles and turning them into weapons because you believe conflict makes better television. Her eyes never left Joy's. That's not honesty. It's exploitation. The impact of those final words was immediate. For a brief moment, no one moved. The cameras stayed fixed on Joy as her expression shifted from anger to disbelief, then to defiance, before settling into something far more uncertain. It was as though she had heard a truth she wasn't prepared to confront. Exploitation, she repeated, her voice losing some of its earlier confidence. I've spent decades giving people a chance to tell their stories. I've stood up for women's rights, demanded accountability from politicians, and spoken out for social justice. She pointed across the studio. So don't stand there and accuse me of exploiting people. Foster didn't flinch. Then help me understand something, she said quietly, taking another measured step forward. Why was your first instinct to tear me down instead of building a meaningful conversation? If these issues matter so much to you, why not spend this time discussing the themes of the film instead of turning my private life into tonight's headline? The question lingered in the air. For the first time since the interview began, Joy had no immediate reply. The silence stretched long enough for everyone watching to notice. Whoopi finally attempted to restore some control. Maybe we should pause for a second. No, Foster interrupted gently, though her tone remained respectful. Joy said she wanted an honest conversation. I think she deserves one. She looked directly at her. Tell me honestly, Joy. What are you really angry about? There was no sarcasm in her voice. No accusation. Only genuine curiosity. Something about the question seemed to break through Joy's defenses. You really want to know, she asked, speaking much more softly than before. It's about watching people like you succeed because of talent and recognition while the rest of us fight every single day just to stay relevant. It's about spending years sitting behind this table entertaining viewers while actors get celebrated for creating important art and changing the world. The confession stunned the room. It was the most candid thing Joy had said all afternoon, but it also exposed emotions that had little to do with the interview itself. Foster's expression softened. Joy, she replied, I understand what it feels like to work hard and still feel overlooked. I understand frustration. But directing that frustration toward the people sitting across from you isn't going to fix what's missing. She paused. It only guarantees that fewer people will want to sit in that chair. So that's it? Joy answered, though the anger had largely faded from her voice. You're never coming back. I honestly don't know, Foster admitted. That depends on what you choose to do after today. Every difficult moment gives us a choice. We either learn from it or we convince ourselves everyone else is the problem. Joy slowly looked around the studio. Only then did she seem to notice the complete silence surrounding her. The audience wasn't laughing. They weren't applauding. They weren't reacting at all. They were simply watching. Not with excitement, but with the uneasy feeling that comes from witnessing someone unravel in front of millions of people. You think you're better than this show, Joy muttered, though there was little conviction left behind the words. Better than this format. Better than me. Foster shook her head. I don't believe I'm better than anyone. I simply believe everyone deserves to be treated with basic respect, including you, including me, and everyone watching at home. She continued calmly. The difference is that I'm not willing to trade that respect for higher ratings, louder arguments, or another viral headline. Sarah Haynes finally found an opening. Maybe we could shift the conversation back to the message of the film, she suggested. There's so much hope in the story for families trying to heal. Stop, Joy snapped, turning toward her colleague. Just stop trying to rescue this. Her frustration now spread across the entire panel. You all sit here agreeing with every guest who walks through those doors. Nobody pushes back anymore. Nobody asks uncomfortable questions. She looked back at Foster. At least I'm trying to practice real journalism. Foster studied her for a moment before answering. Is that honestly what you think this is? There was no anger in her voice. Only quiet concern. Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like journalism. She paused. It looks like someone carrying a great deal of frustration, and using me as the place to unload it. The words were spoken so calmly that they echoed through the silent studio. Joy tried to respond. She opened her mouth. Stopped. Tried again. Nothing came. Finally, her shoulders dropped. You know what, she said at last, barely above a whisper. Maybe you're right. She stared at the floor for a long moment. Maybe I am falling apart. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending any of this really matters, Joy continued, her voice barely above a whisper, when people like you make it obvious that appearing on a show like this is beneath you. Foster answered without hesitation, but there was no anger in her voice. Joy, what happens here can matter. She glanced around the studio before continuing. This program reaches millions of people every single day. That's an incredible responsibility. You have the ability to educate people, inspire meaningful conversations, and shine a light on issues that many viewers might never hear about anywhere else. She paused. But none of that happens when the focus shifts from understanding people to tearing them apart. Joy let out a tired sigh and slowly lowered herself back into her chair. Easy for you to say, she murmured. You choose your projects. You work with directors you admire. You create the stories you believe in. I have to produce 5 hours of live television every week with whoever happens to walk through those doors. Then make those hours matter, Foster replied gently. Make every interview an opportunity to leave people better informed than when they tuned in. She continued in the same calm tone. Ask questions that help your audience understand something new. Challenge people when it's necessary, but never forget that your platform should elevate conversations instead of reducing them to conflict. The room had become almost unnaturally quiet. No audience applause. No whispered conversations. Even members of the production crew stood perfectly still, aware they were witnessing something unlike any ordinary television segment. Joy remained seated, staring silently at the tabletop. Foster stood nearby, waiting patiently. After several long seconds, Joy finally looked toward the cameras, as though suddenly remembering that millions of viewers were still watching from home. We'll be right back, she said softly. Then, gathering herself, she repeated more firmly. We're going to take a commercial break. But the cameras never cut away. Whether it was a technical delay or an intentional decision from the control room, the broadcast continued uninterrupted. Joy slowly turned back toward Foster. I'm sorry, she said. This time there was no sarcasm. No defensiveness. Only exhaustion. You didn't deserve any of this. She shook her head. None of what happened today was really about you. I'm sorry you became the target of everything I was carrying into this conversation. Foster acknowledged the apology with a quiet nod. Thank you for saying that. She picked up her bag before offering one final thought. For whatever it's worth, I sincerely hope you find whatever it is you're searching for. A faint smile crossed her face. I just hope you can find it without hurting other people along the way. With that, she turned and walked calmly off the set. Joy remained seated alone at the table while Whoopi, Sarah, and the rest of the panel exchanged uncertain glances, trying to decide how they could possibly recover the remainder of the broadcast. Only then did the screen finally fade to a commercial break. The final image viewers saw was Joy Behar sitting in complete silence, reflecting on everything that had just unfolded. Whether the exchange changed her perspective or not, only she would know. But for millions watching, it served as a reminder of the fine line between asking difficult questions and forgetting the humanity of the person sitting across from you. What do you think about this dramatic confrontation? Was Joy simply doing her job by asking difficult questions, or did the interview go too far? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories exploring unforgettable moments from television, Hollywood, and the entertainment world. Sometimes the most unforgettable moments aren't scripted at all.